And so my name is Alexis Knight. I am a pack burro racer. I travel across Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona to run in pack burro races. Has anyone ever heard of it? Yes. All right. Well, she's a cheater because I talk about it nonstop. Awesome. So pack burro racing has some debate on how the history came to be. So we know that burros have a rich history in the mining communities, especially in Colorado. So donkeys, pound for pound, are stronger than their comparable horses. However, many donkeys are not going to be quite as large on average as the horses. There are a variety of sizes, so we know that minis, sometimes you'll hear Mediterranean donkey or micro mini, but those don't really apply. They're just sort of additional names. Mediterranean donkey could be recognized overseas, but in the United States, we just recognize minis, standards, and mammoths. So I actually don't remember what the qualification is for mini, but let's say like my thigh height, my hip height, somewhere in there is sort of your minis, and then your standard is anywhere from maybe my hip height up to 52 inches, and then you'll have your mammoths. And so mammoths are more commonly seen, what you'll see for people who are riding them. So people do ride donkeys, and mammoths are a little bit more limited in their coloring. So you're not as likely to see a paint mammoth, but you will be more than likely to see sort of a darker color black one with the light points. You'll see roan mammoths as well, and you might see some whites, but they're a little bit less common. So that's kind of your quick intro on your sizes of donkeys. When you talk about the wild donkeys, they're primarily going to be the standard size. It's unlikely that you'll have the mammoths that are kind of out there, and I think the reason might be a little more obvious. They're probably not quite as athletic, so their survival rates are going to be a little bit more diminished. Minis, there are some herds that have smaller donkeys as a whole, but for the most part, minis are going to be a little bit more susceptible to predation. So you're going to end up seeing a lot more of an average of the standard sizes. And super athletic, very well built to get there. All right. Now that we know the donkeys, we know they have longer ears. And did you guys know that donkeys really love their ears to be scratched? Right? You get them from the front, you can get their ears, they really like their butts to be scratched. So not too dissimilar. Pack burro racing with the mining history, the lore goes that they were using donkeys, as we know, this is less lore, to move mining and rocks. Miners were also using them to carry supplies so they could go to streams and collect their next gold rush. And then this is where the story comes in. A miner and his buddy are up there looking to strike gold in a stream bed. One of them finds some of this gold, and so they look at each other and they realize that they have to get back to town, because if they don't whoever gets back to town can claim that spot first. So they ran with their donkeys. They're not going to leave their donkeys. They're not going to leave their tools. So they grab their donkeys, they grab their tools, and they haul hiney down the mountain to stake claim to this area. And so that's what they say pack burro racing came to be. I think that we're a bunch of storytellers, and the truth might be a little less colorful. So pack burro racing in itself is trail running alongside the donkeys. So we don't ride them. We do ride them recreationally sometimes, but for pack burro racing, you run alongside them. And to have an ode to that history, we also make sure that they always have their pack saddle, and they have their pickaxe, their gold pan, and their shovel. I have never once used it, but maybe if there's a good reason, I'll find some reason to use it. Any thoughts or questions sort of on that quick intro? Eric.
Hi, I wonder for clients. I always thought mammoths were extinct elephants.
Yeah, right. Well, woolly mammoths are extinct now. And so Eric comes out to our ranch, and so he actually sees all of our donkeys. We have 7 donkeys. And do you remember Bogart?
There's a goat up there that's my favorite goat. Her name is the Princess, and every time I go up there, she runs right over to me.
Yeah. Not Bogart, but Bogart is considered a mammoth. So if you think about that size, then that's right where it is. Any other questions on that start? all the time, hey, it's really hard to train a donkey, or I don't know a donkey trainer. Well, you don't know a donkey trainer because they're usually just the owners. There's not a big profession for donkey trainers. So you often get horse trainers who train donkeys, and then they've got a lot of colorful language about that process as well. So my initial reaction was, oh, it's easy. You just train them. You just intuitively experience them and kind of learn their quirks. But then I got a horse and I realized, wait a minute, donkeys are way harder. And why is that? Well, they're way smarter than us. And so we often have to kind of take their perspective into account and realize that it's not going to be, I told you to do this. It is going to be this is my idea, what is your idea? Okay, let's find some middle ground here. But the cool thing about donkeys is they really do care about their relationships with their person, and eventually you'll find times where you'll bend to their will a little bit more, and you'll find times that they'll bend to your will a little bit more. But if you both stand on hard lines, you'll never see each other in that middle. And so that's where you often have issues with farriers in donkeys. I trim all of mine, and I once again didn't understand why people had such a hard time. But I realized in comparison that my process is a little different. So I don't ever go in with a timeline. I guess I'm lucky, it's not really my job. So I have all the time in the world to spend in the sun. And so I go out with them, I start by giving them treats and then petting them, spend time with them, and if they're kicking or refusing, then I just sort of go slow, right? If I can touch a leg, then I stop and I put it back down. And so I honor their will every time by saying, I understood that you allowed me to do this, I'm going to give you a break and or a positive experience. And so it might take me on an initial with a donkey who's had a bad experience. It has taken me 2 hours to trim a single donkey that had a bad experience with sedation and farrier work, but in the end, you want a donkey that's not going to fight you. So I have my hoof stands, my donkeys all stay nice and still. I feed them so they'll have their hay or they'll have a snack in there. And I've heard people say they shouldn't have a snack, they should just stand for you. Well, maybe that's a horse, but a donkey wants to know what's in it for them. And so that we make those compromises. So I do think there's a big difference between donkeys and horses. When you are lining up at a race, you are accepting the fact that you don't have any control. So I rent my donkeys to people. I spend a lot of time training them. They will run beautifully. People will show up the day of a race, grab onto a donkey that they've never met before. They have no experience ever being around any equine. Can anyone tell me what would happen if we did that to a horse and a person? Yeah, they're going to be about as silent as you guys are. They're not going to make it.
Or they may kick you or whatever they want to do.
They might just leave you. They could, right? I mean, I'm not giving it. I love horses. I have 2 of my own. They're both Mustangs. They're just different, and we accept those differences and love them for their differences. I think it's pretty unique that you can grab a lead rope for a donkey, line up in a race with 100 other people and 100 other donkeys, and live to tell the tale. So I began this, and I don't know, I can't tell you why, but one day I woke up and I said, hey, I want a donkey. And, the practical person that my wife is said, why? Well, I hadn't thought beyond that it would be a good idea. So I pulled up Google, right? I tap as fast as I possibly can because I got to prove a point over here. And then I say, wait, you can run with them. So I just turn over to my left shoulder and I say, you can run with them. What? You're gonna what? Well, I double down because that's what I do. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna run with them and it's gonna be really great. So at that point, she's like, whatever, you're gonna run with them. So I go ahead, I move at lightning speed, I find these donkeys that I love so much. They come home, I know nothing. Let's see, I ended up with a couple bruises, a couple kicks, but I learned my way around, and then 2020 hits and everything is pretty silent. And so this big race that I have been excited to do is now quiet. And they ended up being able to hold a smaller version of the race, which was really perfect. So I have way more confidence than maybe I should. So I take my donkey that's never, honestly at this point, hasn't even been off my property until this day, has not participated in a race, hasn't been on a training run. I live out on the western slope. There's no one to run with. So I just say, we're going to go racing. Let's go. So I load us up. We head out there. And then I'm meeting all these friends. I kind of get caught up in the vibe. And then we're at the starting line. I'm feeling good. I have this moment. The countdown starts, right? 10, 9. And then it hits me. What am I doing? I don't know what I am doing. But I have no choice at this point but to keep moving forward. So the gun goes off. The donkey goes off. And then I just let my legs fly as fast as I could. And it was pretty beautiful because thankfully I have a great donkey and he didn't try and kill me at all. In fact, I later fell running downhill and he intentionally jumped over me to not step on me. You could say he didn't want to hurt his leg. I'm going to choose to believe that he did want to step on me. And I'll kind of go from there. But we had a really great race and I haven't looked back since. And so that was Georgetown. And then the following day you have Idaho Springs. All of them are half up and half down, and it's not always easy. But we have a variety of races, and now I have traveled across many states. I have 7 different donkeys. I have trained many others, rent them. I do the Triple Crown races, which, do you guys know about the Triple Crown?
I know about horses.
Yeah. Yeah, the Triple Crown of Burro Racing is a little bit different, and so it's 3 Sundays in a row, beginning the last week in July, and that is Fair Play. And so Fair Play is on one side of Mosquito Pass, Leadville is on the other. So one Sunday you start on the Fair Play side, and you haul Heine right on out of town, and then you go up to the top of Mosquito Pass. Well, there's a pretty decent road that mostly gets you all the way there, except you get to this place called American Flats. American Flats is just above a mining area, and so it's high alpine grass at the end of July, so sometimes you might get really beautiful flowers. You're oftentimes going to run into lightning and hail, and then you have really beautiful, lush grass that you get to walk right into the middle of, so you're now asking your donkey to finish at this point you're probably 11, 12 miles in, and you've gone nothing but uphill, and now you're in a fresh grass area, and so you have to say like, hey, thanks for all that you've done, but we're not going to eat now. Instead, we're going to keep going, okay? So there's been some arguments in American Flats. And before you get to the top of Mosquito Pass, you climb straight up a boulder hill that you can hear, what are they called? They're the squeaky little animals that live in the rocks and hide.
Picas.
The picas. So you're walking up this nearly vertical boulder hill with the donkey. Thank goodness they are so sturdy on their feet, and then you're hearing the picas yell at you from underneath your feet. And so it's a pretty magical experience. I don't know if I always say that I enjoy it, because there are times where I'm also an ultra runner, and it feels like this 30-mile race is the same as a 50-mile run because of the compromise and the near constant attentiveness that you have to attend to your animal at the time. And then when you get up to Mosquito Pass, you are pretty exposed, and you turn right back down and you run back into town. If things don't go well on a 30-mile run with a donkey, you're going to spend a lot of time out there. So we make sure to bring in. It could go great, you could get back in the sunshine most of the time, and then the next year you might not get in until 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night. It's a pretty wild experience, so certainly not for those who want to get back in their bed at a reasonable time.
Who was your first donkey? Was that the girl?
Charleston and Ellis.
Oh.
Yep, so I have 2 white donkeys, Charleston and Ellis, and those guys were good to me in that learning process. The following Sunday is Leadville, and maybe you guys have heard about the Leadville Pack Burro race. I'm sure you've heard about Leadville as a whole. It's a pretty rough and tumble town, and I would say the pack race is pretty similar. You go from the Leadville side and you go up and over to Mosquito Pass and come right back down. That tends to be about 23 miles, and it's a little bit nicer than the Fair Play side, just a little less rugged on it, so I do appreciate that. And then if that wasn't enough to do, I guess about over 50 miles in a 1-week time frame, the following Sunday is Buena Vista, and that tends to little shorter, and so that's going to be your much faster speed dash, and ultimately what determines the Triple Crown winner. And so you're tired, and now you get to sprint. So the Triple Crown is usually what most people are familiar with. Yes, sir.
So are you actually running all the time, or are you walking, or what?
Yeah. So when you start out at a race, it depends on where you are. So if you are at the front of a race, you are going to be running as fast as you possibly can, and then some. So in order to get that speed, because I have clocked my donkeys going at a 2:43 minute per mile pace. Not thankfully for an entire mile because I wouldn't make it, but certainly for a period of time. So a 2:43 pace is not sustainable, and on average, I would say I probably run between a 7 and 8 minute mile on my faster end during just my runs, but with the donkey, I might need to run a 6 minute mile. And so in order to do that, I ask my donkey to help me. So when I head out of town and they're in a mad dash out of town, I have to release my control of the donkey. I allow him to go in front of me. He runs alongside his herd. I take the rope and then I wrap it right underneath my behind, and then I pull it forward and I hold the two rope pieces together. If you want to know what happens if you clip into a donkey where you can't release, you'll lose about a quarter of your skin if you're lucky. So I learned that, don't do it. It doesn't matter, donkeys are really strong and they can be very fast, and so wrapping the rope and holding it gives you the advantage that they're pulling you along, but you can release it and you'll be okay as well. So I'd like to say that I'm running the entire time, but there are times when I'm not. And when I'm not, I'm usually dragging my companion behind me. And if you go and find my pictures, you're guaranteed to find many of them where I'm either like this, like this, or like this, or a myriad of pictures, and they'll pull me and then I pull them. So once again, you compromise. But I do like to pretend like it's my idea. So even when I'm pulling like this, I'm like, yep, this is a really good CrossFit time. Thanks. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the must-have if you're looking at being a pack row racer or attendee is a good attitude. Go to have fun. Let it be what it'll be. Recognize that you're never in charge of your race. That you're always going to be learning from them. And that's what if you can accept that you're a lifelong learner of a burro, then they'll accept that they're a lifelong student with you.
In the wild, are burros very athletic like this? And how much training, so I have a few questions.
Yeah.
What kind of workup do you have to do to get your burros in shape to do this? And then you may have said it, how long are your average races, mileage-wise? And what's your cap?
Okay. Yeah, so there's a huge range for races. So they do have 3-mile intro races, and then the longest is that 30-mile at Fairplay. And so between 3 and 30 miles. And you don't have to run the entire time. There are people that come and they walk the entire section. So if you line up in the back and your donkeys are with others that are walking, you're going to be more likely to walk. If you want to run, you want to be in the front. If you want something in the middle, you're going to want to be somewhere in the middle. Donkeys have to be very athletic in the wild because that's how they survive. And I do believe that while donkeys and horses do overlap territories, they tend to be kind of in their own separate herds. Donkeys like donkeys, horses like horses. Every once in a while, some of them will prefer the others, but for a whole, they're going to want to be with their own herds. So donkeys tend to get shoved off to the rockier areas, a little bit harder terrain, and they survive better off of it. And you might go through reservation areas where you see horses that are just pretty skinny, and then you'll see the donkeys and they're looking real good. And then donkeys are a little bit more likely, we know that they stop and think before they act, but they're a little bit more likely to kind of defend their territory than a horse. Ultimately, they're still going to be prey animals, and that's going to be there, but they have a little bit stronger of a stance for theirs. I don't think they're good guard animals, because when it comes down to it, they're going to protect themselves, and they're going to hightail it away from your cattle. So.
And then what kind of gear do you need to participate in this particular sport?
Yeah, so you need a pack saddle. shovel, and then they go right into the panniers, right on the side of the pack saddle. A lead rope, a halter, and then whatever you need, which is oftentimes a water bottle, cap, sunscreen, and most importantly, a good attitude.
What about your shoes?
Yep, you'll probably, I mean, if you're walking, you can likely wear most shoes, but if you are running, then there's a variety of shoes. I'm partial to Hoka, but you don't want to get me on a shoe talk.
That's the next one.
I'll get in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so
Yay.
much, Alexis.